Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Shall we? Yes, today's topic is chapter number 19, Java exceptions. So first of all, my question is, what is exception? It's the runtime anomalies or the compile time anomalies? Yes, it is same as the C and the C++. So in the C++, exceptions are the runtime anomalies. Runtime anomalies means there is a runtime error that occurs that is known as exceptions. In the same way, there is exceptions in the Java also. That is a problem that arises during the execution, during the runtime of the program, and exception can occur to any of the following reasons. That includes the following. A user has entered invalid data, a file that need to be opened that cannot be found. That means we are taking out the file that is not available. Then there is a network connection that has been lost in the middle of the communication, or the JVM has run out of the memory. And some of these exceptions are caused by the user error, other by the programmer error, other by the physical resources that have failed in some manner. Now, to understand how exception handling works in Java, you must understand three categories of exceptions. First is checked exceptions, one is the runtime errors, one is the only the errors. So one is a checked exception, that is an exception that is typically a user error or a program or the problem that cannot be foreseen by the programmer. For example, if a file is opened but the file cannot be found, then there is exception. These exceptions cannot simply be ignored at the time of the compilation. Then next is the runtime errors or the runtime exception. That is an exception that occurs that probably could not be or have avoided by the programmer. That is opposed to the checked exception. Runtime exceptions are also ignored at the time of the compilation. That means each and every exceptions are ignored at the time of the compilation, but these are occurred at the runtime exceptions or the runtime compilation. Then there is errors, only the errors. So these are not the exceptions at all, but the problems that arises beyond the control of the user or the programmer, and they are typically ignored in your code because you can rarely do anything about an error. For example, if a stack overflow, then there is an error that arises. They are also ignored at the time of the compilation. So one is the checked exception, one is the runtime exception, one is the errors. Now, what is exception hierarchy? That means what are the various classes, what are the various subclasses that is used by the exception, that is used by the exception. So these are the hierarchy that are the subtype of the java.lang or java.language.exception class, and this class is a subclass of the throwable class. Other than the exception class, there is another subclasses that is known as error, which is derived from the throwable class. And these are normally trapped from the Java program. These are normally used as the Java program. These conditions normally happens in case of the several serial, which are not handled by the Java program, and they are generated to indicate the error that is generated for the runtime environment. For example, JVM is out of the memory. Normally programs cannot recover from the error. And these are the causes, or there are two classes, there are two subclasses that is available. One is the input-output exception class, one is the running or the runtime exception class. This is the throwable, then there is an error, then there is exception, input-output exception, then there is a runtime exception. So again, there are two parts with this one. One is the error, one is a throwable, one is a exception, then there is the input-output and the runtime. Now this is the list of the common checked and unchecked Java built-in exceptions. So Java defines several Java exceptions, or the several exception classes that is inside the standard package, that is java.language, and the more general form of these exceptions are the subclasses of the standard type runtime exceptions, and this is used with the Java language that is imported into the Java programs. Now these are the various list of the unchecked runtime exceptions. One is the arithmetic exception, that is divided by the 0. One is the array out of bound. So we are using, or by declaring the array as a 5, and we are accessing the element of, or the sixth element, that is array index out of the bound, out of the range. Then assignment to an array element is of the incompatible type. For example, you declare the array as an int and we are typing the, or we are declaring, or we are supplying the value as a float. That is also the array element, that is array store exception. Then the class cast exception, there is an invalid cast that is used with exception handling. Then there is an illegal argument exception that is used to invoke a method. Then monitor state exception that is used for the waiting on an untrade or the unload thread. Then illegal state exception, that is the environment or the application that is in the incorrect state. The next one is the illegal. Next one is the illegal state exception, that is exception or the environment or the application is in the incorrect state. Then illegal thread state exception, that is a requested operation not compatible with the current state operation or the current state or thread state. Then index out of the bound exception, that is some types of the index is out of the bound. Negative array size exception, that is created with a negative size. Then null pointer, invalid use of the null reference, number format, invalid conversion of a string to the numeric format. Then security exception, that attempts to violate the security. Then string index out of, that means we are using the string, that is attempt to find out the index outside the bound of a string. Then unsupported operation exception, that is used or that is encountered with the unsupported operation. And this is the list of the Java checked exception defined in the Java language. Class not found exception, class the clone not supported exception. Then illegal access exception, interrupted, no such field, no such method exceptions. Now let's see what are the various exception method that is used to that is available with the important methods that is available within the throwable class. So next is the exception method that is used. So one is the public string get message that is available that returns a detailed message that is used that about the exception that has occurred, and this is installed or that is available in the throwable constructor. Then public throwable get close, that is represented by the throwable object. So this is first one, this is the second one. Then public string to string, so this returns the name of the class concatenated with the result of the get message. That means we are combining with the string to string, we are combining with the one string with another string, so that is used with the result of the get message. Then public void prints track trace, so this prints the result of the two string along with the string trace to the system error. Then the output or the error output stream, so whatever the error that is available, that is used with a track stream. Then public stack trace element gets track trace. Then public throwable fill in stack trace, that fills the stack trace of the throwable class object with the current stack trace, that is adding to my previous information in the stack trace. Then the next one is catching the exception. So till now we have discussed what is an exception, how it is handled or how it is available. Then how to catch the exception. So there are two methods, there are two keywords that is used with the catching or that is available for catching the exception, that is used with the combination of the try and the catch keywords. And then try and the catch block is placed around the code that might generate an exception. So use of the code within a try/catch block is referred as the protected code, and the syntax for using try catch looks like the following. This is a try, then there is a protected code, catch exception name even, then catch block. And this involves declaring the type of the exception you are trying to catch, and if an exception occurs in the protected mode or the protected code, then the catch block or the blocks that follows the try block is checked. So whenever it is the try block, that is used with the block that follows the try. And if the type of the exception that occurred is listed in a catch block, then the exception is passed to the catch block that makes or that is much using as an argument that is passed into a method parameter. Now the following is an array that is declared within the or with two elements. Then the code tries to access the third element of the array which throws an exception. This is the file name accept class.java, import java.input/output, then public class accept class. Then public static void main string args, this is the main function. Then try int a equals to new int 2. So this is declared as an array, a as declared as an array, then there is a new variable, then int 2. Then system.out.println access element 3. This is the access element 3, then a plus a3, then catch array index out of the bound, then system.out.println exception or the exception thrown, that is plus c, and system.out.println out of the block. So these are various examples that is used with the element that is used to, we can say, try to, the code try to access the third element of the array that throws an exception. Now this will produce the output. This is java.lang.array out of bound exception 3. This is out of the block. The next is multiple catch blocks. This is that can be followed, or the try block can be followed by the multiple catch block. Now the syntax for using the multiple catch block just looks like the following. This is the try, then there's a protected code, then there is a catch block, catch block, catch block. So these are the various one try method, then there are multiple catch blocks that is used. Now this is the code segment showing how to use a multiple try oblique catch statement. Then the throws and the throw keyword that is used. Now next is the throw keywords. When to use the throw keyword. So sorry, this is first one example is missing out. That is how to use the multiple try and the catch statement. This is try, then file. First of all, we have to open a new file. That is a new file input stream, file name. Then that is going into the file only. The next equals to byte file.read. So we are using the byte for storing the values in the X value. Then file.read. Catch I input output exception I. Input output exception I means that is used with the catch block. Then I.print stack trace. So I.print stack trace that is available with the function with the definition, or we can say the calling the function. Then return -1, catch file not found exception F, then not valid, F.print stack trace, then return -1. So these are used as a code segment that uses how to use the try and the catch statements. The next is a throw oblique the throw keyword. So either we are using the throws or either we are using the throw keyword. So if a method does not handle a checked exception, then the method must declare it using the throw keyword, and the throws keyword appears at the end of the method signature, and you can throw an exception, either a newly installed one or an exception that just code, or by using the throw keywords. Now try to understand the difference in throws and the throw keywords. And the following method declares that it throws a remote exception. This is the import java.input-output, then public class name, then public void deposit double amount. So we are using one of the function as in the deposit in the throws keyword, that is a public void deposit and double amount throws remote exception. Then method implementation, this is throw new remote exception, then remainder of the class definition. That can declare that it throws more than one exception, in which case the exceptions are declared in a list separated by the commas. For example, the following method declares that it throws a remote exception and the insufficient fund exception. This is the import java.input-output, then public class name, public void withdraw double amount throws remote exception, insufficient fund exception. And at last there is a finally keyword that is available. So this is used to create a block of the code that follows a try block, and a finally block of code always executes whether or not the exception has occurred. And we are using the finally block that allows to run any cleanup type statement that you want to execute, no matter what happens in the protected code. So no matter what is available in the protected code, but we are using the finally keyword or the final block. And the finally block appears at the end of the catch statement, and it has the following syntax. One is a try, then there is a protected code, catch exception type 1 E1, then next is a catch exception type 2 E2, then catch exception type 3 E3. Then finally, that is the final block always executes. Now, next one is the example. This is the public class except class, public static void main string args. Int a equals to new int 2. So we are declaring as an array that is equals to new int 2. Then try system.out.println access element 3, that is a plus a3. Then catch array index out of the bound exception e. Then system.out.println exception thrown plus e. And finally a0 equals to 6. Then system.out.println first element value A0. Then system.out.println the finally statement is executed. Then this is the closing, this is the closing, this is the closing. So this is the exception thrown, that is a java.language array index out of the bound exception 3, first element value 6, then the finally statement is executed. Note the following, then the catch statement or the catch clause cannot exist or exist without a try statements. Then it is compulsory to have a finally clauses whenever a try catch block is present. So it is not compulsory to have a final whenever we are using the try clause. It is not mandatory that we have to use the final block. No, that is not mandatory. And the try block cannot be present without either the catch or finally clause, and any code cannot be present in between the try, catch, final block. Means no one code is available in between the try block, in between the catch block, in between the final block. Now, how to declare your own exception? Next one. So until now we have discussed what are the various try, throw, and the final block. Next is how to throw or how to use your own exception that is available in this one. Now next is how to declare your own exception. So you can create your exception in the Java and keep the following points in the or mind while writing the following classes, or write your own exception classes. So all exceptions must be a child of the throwable, and if you want to write a checked exception that is automatically enforced by the handle or the declare rule, you need to extend the exception class. And if you want to write a runtime exception, you need to extend the runtime exception class also. And we can define our own exception class as follows. This is the class my exception class or extend the exception. You need to extend the exception class to create your own exception class. And these are considered to be the checked exception, and the following insufficient fund exception is available to follow the rules for the user defined exception that extends the exception class, making it the checked exception. This is one of the example. This is the import Java input or the import java.input output, then public class insufficient funds exception extends exception, then the private double amount, then public insufficient funds exception double amount, then this dot amount equals to amount. That means whatever the amount field that is used in the this dot amount. Then public double get amount. So this is used. We are declaring that get amount function of the double type of the public type. Then return amount. This is the next program for checking the accounts. This is used to withdraw. Then throws the insufficient fund exception if the amount is less than equals to balance, and balance minus equals to amount, and the double needs equals to amount minus balance. When doubling double get balance, this is returns the exception, then the public int get number, then returns the number. Now these are the two common exceptions. One is the JVM exception. These are the exception errors that are exclusively or logically thrown as by the JVM. Example is a null point exception. Then array out of bound, then class cast exception. The next is programmatic exception. These are thrown explicitly by the application of API programmer. Example, illegal argument or the illegal state exception. Next is the inheritance. That is a Java inheritance that is used with the is a relationship or a has a relationship. That we are going to discuss within the next class. That is within the tomorrow class. So that's all for today's session. Till that Java exception. Any doubts anyone till the Java exceptions? Any doubts anyone in the assignments? So we will take the next part, that is chapter number 20.